Good evening, friends. Welcome to Civil's Manthan. Today in Newspaper Manthan class of editorial analysis, we will discuss certain editorials of The Hindu and one explained section of Indian Express newspaper. So we start. One of the important article today we have is from The Hindu, that is the trends shaping the post-COVID-19 world. So here the author, the writer Rakesh Sood has written about how the post-COVID-19 world would be, what the trends could be. So it's a very good article. Certain points this writer has brought. So he has divided the whole article into 4 to 5 different areas. The first one is, if you see here, that Asia is ascending and US waning. So this is one of the first area where the writer has discussed that Asia is ascending and US is waning. Second is intra-European fissions. Third, rising China. Fourth, fading organizations, the international organizations, the multilateral organizations, and the fifth one is the energy factor. So in the first, that is Asia is ascending and US waning. So Rakesh Sood has given example how post 2008, in 2008 global financial crisis, there was rise of Asia. So he mentions it is not just rise of Asia, it is Asia's re-rising. It is resurgence of Asia basically. Asia was already half of the global GDP in the 18th century. And post-industrial revolution and colonialism and naval expansion, industrial revolution. So this led to decline of Asia. Initially, Asia was already dominating. But then this balance was restored post 2008 financial crisis, and Asian economies, they showed the resilience. And now even in this present scenario, we can see in this pandemic, the Asian countries, they have performed much better than the Western countries, European and the United States. Second one is US is waning. How US is waning? We can see that initially US was at the dominating position at the time of the First World War, Treaty of Versailles, Second World War, when the Cold War started, Cold War ended. All during this whole phase, the Bretton Woods institutions, dominance of US in the World Bank and the IMF and the various other multilateral institutions as well. But later on, the US role started declining. It put itself into the Iraq war and the Afghanistan war. So it has seen, and with the rise of China, it has seen how rise of Asia, the Asian economies. So it has seen how US has declined itself. Even when Trump started America first, right? Now, how the President Trump later on asked for the medicines from the India to be given to United States. So it has led to a situation where America seems to be not only America first, but America alone, right? Whereas a leader should be not only focused on its own interest, it should lead by example. It should lead in a way that could bring peace and tranquility in the whole world, a rule-based order in the whole world. But now this is not happening. So there is declining phase of United States leadership in the world. Whereas even in the pandemic, if you see how the South Korea, Japan, India, China, various other South Asian countries, they've responded to this global pandemic of COVID-19 has been seen better than how European nations they have performed. Second one is intra-European fissions. There has also been seen how US has declined in the way we can see US has seen its phase as waning. Also European fissions we have seen, intra-European fissions. One of the things is regarding East European nations, East European states which were somehow inclined towards the USSR in the Cold War era, and later on now still there can be rift can be seen in those integration. So they are not fully integrated to the whole Europe. Secondly, financial crisis in the Eurozone members, in the Greece, in the Italy, in the Spain, that has seen a north-south divide as well, where austerity measures were put over. You can see here the austerity measures were put over by Germany, European Central Bank. Well, these nations played an important role in that. Brexit also happening. So all this shows how there are various fictions that are rising up in the European Union and European Eurozone as well. And if you see in this global pandemic of COVID-19, the Eurozone, the Schengen Visa, where it was based on fully integrated, people could move over. Now, do you think it will be the same as the post-COVID? Even the COVID time, the borders have closed, and the post-COVID as well, there are apprehension of how these borders will reopen. So still there could be certain fissures could further rise up between the different countries once even post COVID-19. Rising China. Now China has risen a lot. It is very assertive in the leadership of Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping nowadays, he is compared with Mao, in fact, one of the most powerful leader of China. Now, with his ambitious Belt and Road Initiative, Xi Jinping wants to make China as leader of the whole world, and with the rise of other institutions like AIIB and other initiatives that China is leading in this, even in this COVID-19 now with the other countries, they are reeling under COVID-19. China is regaining, opening its industries, and also, so in this way, China's status is rising day by day. Even in South China Sea, in all other areas, China's assertiveness is increasing. In next point is regarding fading organizations. So in the past few years, we have already seen how WTO, various other multilateral organizations, they have been reduced to a very nominal level. Their role has been reduced. There has been resurgence of protectionism, trade war, that could not be stopped by the multilateral organizations like WTO. So UNSC, G20, now WHO also. Now WHO has lost its autonomy. We have seen how initially WHO was dominated by USA. Now it is by voluntary contribution. It is dependent on the voluntary contributions rather than the permanent budgets that it gets. Now China is dominating the WHO functioning, as we have seen in the recent times. So the autonomy of the various multilateral institutions and their power has reduced a lot. Then the final point the writer talks about is the energy factor. With the rise of renewable energy, and US has also emerged as energy producer, there has been rebalancing of the energy equations between the supplier and the producers in the other countries which are dependent on energy, we can say. So it has reduced you can say that somehow COVID-19, with the already economic recession going on at this time in the whole world, economic activities on the turmoil, on the plummet. So in this way, there is very low demand of the oil, and it has led to the oil producing countries which are wholly dependent on the oil commodity. Their economies, they have gone into a deep turmoil. Now in the present situation, we can see how the protectionism and nationalism that is also rising up in this in the last few years, and with the COVID-19, it can further can rise to the next level. So that's all from this article. So we can see there are 4 to 5 points, major points that we can learn. So let's try to recall. The first one was Asia is ascending as say from the you can say 18th century. It was already having the half the global GDP. Now then US started dominating, and now again Asia is regaining its old position. Second is intra-European fissions. We have seen within the Europe there are a lot of fissures are coming up. Rise of China, the international organizations, they are fading, and the energy factor. Now coming to the next article, this article talks about the epidemic and ensuring safety in the courts. So presently, the court functioning, the Supreme Court, High Court, or the lower courts, it already is only going by the video conferencing, and only the important matters are being heard due to this lockdown and COVID-19 pandemic. So certain guidelines have been set by the Supreme Court and by the High Court for their respective subordinate courts. Now, here the Bar Council of India, it has opposed the continuation of virtual hearing that is presently going on by way of video conferencing once the lockdown is lifted. And they have given this logic. You can see that most of the advocates and judges, they are unaware of technology and its nuances. Well, we know when we talk about various issues in the judiciary, one of the major issues was pendency of the cases. There are on an average around 3 to 4 crore cases are pending in India in Indian judiciary, and one of the major reason is a huge number of vacancies are left unfilled in the judiciary. So there is very low judges to population ratio in India. So one way could be by increasing the functioning, one way could be increasing the computerization, digitalization, so that the efficiency of the judiciary could be increased. That has been a long demanding reform in the judiciary, but now as Bar Council has put in this perspective, so there can be certain suggestions could be there by the writer that could be brought post-lockdown, in the post-lockdown situation. When the lockdown could be lifted, what could be the suggestions? So here certain suggestions are given. First one is only those lawyers and litigants whose cases are listed for the day's hearing should be allowed. That's it. Secondly, lawyers, they should come in the batches. Thirdly, thermal imaging cameras could be installed that could basically check upon the temperature of the people coming over and could figure them out if anybody having the temperature, and that could be taken care of. Fourthly is everybody who is coming to the court premises, court complexes, Arogya Setu app should be on their phones, and that should be checked if they had come in contact of any COVID-19 positive cases. So they should be dealt accordingly. Fifth is automatic hand votes, and these machines could be installed at the court complexes. The regulations on the manner of how the functioning of public relief services are to function, the canteen to be functioned, those regulations could be set on. Then it also suggests that junior lawyers should be given certain financial assistance as well. Next article we have is on responding to COVID-19 at the grassroots. So it basically talks about how the grassroots institutions, basically the PRIs, they have responded to COVID-19. And the writer of this article, T. Raghunandan, has talked how the state, which is better off in terms of the grassroots institutions. So we have automatically the state comes to our mind is Kerala, right? So Kerala, and you can know the Kudumshiri system is the SHG system, how they have functioned in the Kerala state very well, and now they are also helping in making the mask and how they are helping in dealing with this COVID-19 situation. So the states where the grassroots institutions are well established, where they are given the sufficient powers, they have responded well to this COVID-19 situation. It starts with that Mahatma Gandhi, he basically he had this in the dream that India basically lives in the villages, right? So if India is to be developed, the villages are to be developed, and they should be, how they to be developed, they should be given powers, they should be empowered to decide their own affairs. Whereas Ambedkar Sahab, he was somehow skeptical about the powers, or if the villages are empowered, because he was skeptical in a way, because he, as per Ambedkar Sahab, that villages, they are caste ridden. So villages are empowered. So this how caste ridden society could be that could be perpetuated in a way. So there was somehow paradox in both of these leaders' uh, theories in a way. So with the 73rd Constitutional Amendment, we know how uh, the Schedule 11 and Schedule 12 were brought, and PRIs and the local bodies, municipalities, they were given the constitutional status. But not every state gave enough powers, because many of those were the powers, what kind of functions could be there, what kind of the powers could be devolved, that was left over the states. And different states, they dealt with this differently. And the states which basically empowered them more, like states like Kerala, where Kerala, it is the PRIs are well developed, highly developed PRIs we have in Kerala. And the same way, Kerala has responded well to deal with this situation in comparison to this COVID-19 situation in comparison to the other states. That's all from this article. Next, we can discuss about explained section of Indian Express. One of the article is what labor law changes means. Now, in certain states like UP, MP, Gujarat, and certain other states like Rajasthan and Punjab, where there are because economic activities are taking a dip, already we are moving towards a recession, we all know. In this COVID-19 situation, lockdown is there, no industrial activities are happening in per se. So to ensure that economic activities again starts, the investment comes in, and they again start taking up. So certain states, they have brought flexibility in the labor laws. One of the major hurdle in our industries to be taken to the next level was archaic labor laws. So because of archaic labor laws, many of the industries were not coming to India. They were rather happy investing in Bangladesh, Vietnam, China, where the labor laws are quite industry friendly. In India, if you see, there are around more than 200-300 labor laws, right? Like we have Factories Act, Industrial Disputes Act, Maternity Benefits Act, Wages and Remuneration Act, Social Securities Act. You can see here the various labor laws that are given. So now there are multiplicity of labor laws. If you just imagine a situation where there are any of the company that has to work, industry that has to work, it has to comply to hundreds of the labor laws. Suppose for example, now labor law is in concurrent list. Both center and state can make the law, and various different states they are making the different laws over in this particular section of labor laws. Now, because of the complexity of the labor laws, first of all, they also put in the restriction. For example, in the Factories Act, there are conditions of say for 10 and 20. If if any of the industry that has the 10 employees and that is based on electricity, means that is run by electricity, so that has to comply to the Factories Act. Or if around 20 employees, then it has to comply to the Factories Act if it is non-electricity based. For Industrial Disputes Act, we can say if 100 employees and more, for more than 100 employees, it has to comply to the Industrial Disputes Act as well. So what actually was happening, the small industries like MSMEs, they are already small, right? So if they see that they have to comply to so many labor laws, now they can't, so it restricts them. The MSMEs, what they basically then start doing, they restricts them to grow big. They intentionally keep themselves small, and when they intentionally keep themselves small, they are not able to take benefits of economies of scale. So the industries are not becoming the big industries, and it is overall hampering the overall economic health of the country. The overall size of the economy gets restricted in a way. So archaic labor laws has been termed for a long that these are somehow impeding our industrial growth, economic growth. So there has been a demand from the various sectors that reform should be brought in the labor laws, and government had also started basically by bringing the 4 codes on the labor laws, so that various codes should be brought and various laws could be brought under those codes and reforms could be brought in. Now during this COVID-19, various states they have, like UP, that has dismantled all the suspended all the labor laws, almost all the labor laws for the next 3 years, so that more industrial activity could spur in during this time. Now this article talks about how these kind of steps could basically backfire. One of the points that talks about is that it could lead to the more and more exploitation, because once you say the laborers, the workers, they are not given the they are not complying, they are not given the benefit of the minimum wage act, for instance. So the wages could dip in, and instead of going for the formalization, the industries could go for informalization, because they could be fired, because now there could be easy hire and fire policy, easily retrenchment. So that could lead more of the informalization of the economy rather than the formalization in this way. Secondly, there is also a wide gap between the formal and informal wage rate. If you see here from this chart, that from the casual role worker, the black, this indicates the female, the red indicates the male, so 22, and here 100. So it means on an average around 20. So this 100 is for the regular urban worker, male. So if you see the difference, the gap between the casual rural worker of a woman casual rural worker, so around 20% of the regular urban worker, male. So there is a huge gap you can see between these two. Secondly, there has been also talks regarding and the decisions regarding the shift duration is also to be increased from 8 to 12 hours. So the writer suggests instead of having the 12 hours, because it could lead to the overwork and exploitation of the workers, instead there should be 8 hours shift. There should be 2 shifts of 8 hours each instead of a 12 hours work. Then what the suggestion is there? Suggestion is there that instead of doing away the various labor laws, because these labor laws also provide the security to the labor, certain kind of social security as well. So instead of just wiping away of all the labor laws, one of the suggestion could be that government could partner with industry and allocate around 3 to 5% of GDP towards sharing the wage burden, and also ensuring the health of the laborers, because if COVID hits them, then it is the you can say the whole country could be hit. And it also talks about, gives a suggestion that there are more other areas where the focus should be, like shortage of skilled labor force is there, that is also hampering our economic growth. Weak enforcement of contracts is another area of concern. Even this article talks that other countries have responded in the same way. For example, Canada, Vietnam, Bangladesh, UK, they have in fact contributing in a way by fulfilling the wage gap to their workers in this time of the tested time of the COVID-19. So Bangladesh providing around $11.77 million bonus payment package for the workers and the health workers, doctors. UK is to pay 80% of the usual wages of the employees laid off for the 4 months. So these are various things that the various other countries are providing. So what this article basically talks about, instead of blanket removing of all the labor laws, there should be more thought of process, that proper regulation should also be there, so that laborers, the workers, they should not be exploited. Their interest should be taken care of. Their minimum wages should be protected, right? Social security should be protected. So the focus is not to be wholly given to, you can say, on the industry or favoring the industries. Favoring of industry, there should be balance in the both of these two, interest of workers as well as interest of the industries, because both of their interests should converge in fact. So that's all for the today's discussion. So today we discussed one article on the how there is change, there could be change in the post COVID-19 world order. One article was on how the courts should function in the post COVID-19 lockdown and lockdown is lifted. Third, we discussed about how PRIs they've helped or their role in this COVID-19 situation. And this article we have discussed that how different states they have come out with the change in the labor laws and what labor law change means for India and how our country should respond in a way. That's all for today's discussion. Thank you. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, you can share, you can press the bell icon. Thanks for today.